I'm offspring of the Cunninghams and the Purriers and the Hancocks. The Purriers and the Cunninghams came from South Carolina through Missouri, crossed West Sugarloaf, coming in to the Black Ranch to Homestead, one of the earlier ones to Homestead in the county. And on the trip in, they had Grandpa Richard and Elizabeth Cunningham, and he died somewhere in the neighborhood of West Sugarloaf, whether it was on this side or on the other side, I don't know, but they buried him in the Cheney graveyard. But Elizabeth came on to the homestead with the Purriers and her family. Frederick Purrier and his wife, and I want to think her name was Drusilla, some of the others thinks it's something else. And they had Marguerite, who was my grandmother, and she married Richard Cunningham's son, which would be Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they called him Shade, and they called her Mag. And to that family was born my father, which was Henry Columbus. And there was Will in that family, and Richard, Henry, Jim, Sam, Effie, and Bessie. They were great singers. I'm sure this stemmed from the Purriers. And they settled there, and it was a great time for them in homesteading. To think that it's a wonder to me how you could come in from the state of Missouri and find a trail that you could come all the way to Boone County in Arkansas. That's in the Lead Hill community. My father was Henry, as I've said, and he taught music, tried to teach it to us children, and we really wasn't so interested because when something's at hand that you can really have, you know. But anyway, I learned quite a bit, and I've used it in my life, and I still use it in my life. And at the present, I am 82 years old. So Daddy married Mama when he was 25, I think, and she was 22 or 23. And she came from John Rufus, Hancock, and Olivia Van Phoebus. And I do know in Grandma's family, she had a brother named Will and a sister named Sally, which Sally was absolutely beautiful. And on John Rufus' side, he was a twin, and his twin was named Will. And also in that family was two girls. There was two sets of twins, and it was Adele and Arbel, and of course John and Will. And I know with the girls, no, I'm wrong in that. In Adele's family, she had twins. She had several. She married a Graham and lived in Lead Hill, and her husband owned a place where you made horseshoes, did all sort, blacksmith shop, all sort of wagon wheels, anything that a farmer would need. He made this. He was very industrious and very prosperous, right in the, just off Highway 714 in Lead Hill. And she raised some twins, and she also couldn't raise them without, she brought them in with buttermilk, and she churned each day, Aunt Adele did. Each day she churned fresh milk for those babies to have milk to drink. I never heard of it, but anyway, this is a story. She was there when Grandma was dying. I think Grandpa died first. And then Aunt Adele, they was just, their backyards went together almost. And she took care of Grandma some during the time that Mama was away at the house. And I remember she thought that Grandma had a bad diarrhea, and I guess it dehydrated her, because she was old. But Aunt Adele was strong with tobacco and all those things, and Grandma Hancock dipped snuff all the time. And it was so artistic to see her sit on the front porch in a wicker love seat. She and Mama would sit on that, and Grandpa would sit in another rocking chair on the front porch and rock. And Grandma had a stick, and she had splintered it up about this far. And then she would wet it and put that down in her snuff can and put it in her mouth. And Janelle and I would want to so bad taste of that to see what it tasted like. Well, anyway, but at her death, Grandma warmed her some tobacco and brought it, thought that might help the diarrhea. Now, what a homemade idea. But Grandpa chewed also. And we'd steal out a little bit of his tobacco and think, you know, they looked to them like it was so good, make us sick. Grandpa would stir up some cookies. He never ever asked us if we'd like to have one. So we'd steal them out of them. She had a china cabinet full of cut glass. Beautiful, Grandma did. And so he would put those cookies in there on a plate, and they made the ugliest things, thick, heavy like a biscuit, tasted just like soda. But we'd steal one out, you know, and take it out back to eat it. Wasn't good. But anyway, facing Grandma and Grandpa's house was the hotel. And there was my mama, Berla, and Will, or Bill, the son, and then Bertha was the three children. So Uncle Bill lived across the street facing Grandma and Grandpa's house in a hotel. Very luxurious in that time. Her mother and father lived with them, Dale Dunlap, sorry, lived with them. And in our family, I'll go back and bring that up to date now. To Mom and Daddy was born Conard, Henry Conard. He died in the war, World War II, not in battle, but in Nome, Alaska. And he was born August the 24th, 1915. The next one was Clifford Eugene. He is born in January the 12th, 1917. The next one was Ethna Merle, and she was born in January 23, 1921. Eva Janelle was the next one, and she was born May the 25th, 1929. And I'm Claudia Bernice, and I was born January the 9th, 1931. So 3 of us was born in January, always in cold weather. And of course they would have one of the women that would, in the community, and it would have been Granny Trimble. I know delivered me, I don't know who else. But Merle would tell in late years that Mama got sick, and so they were sending them to Grandma and Grandpa's farm, which was probably a mile to a mile and a half away from us. We lived on a farm. And Jean said, I don't know why they'd be sending us to Grandma and Grandpa's. Do you know Merle? And Merle said, yes, Jean, Mama's having a baby. And that was when I was born. And how they could get Granny Trimble so far in there, I have no idea. Someone would have to go, first of all, and then someone would have to bring her back. You just didn't see a car then, hardly at all. hardly ever would you see a car then. Our mode of transportation from the farm, when we lived on the farm, our living came from the farm. We always had a cow to milk. We had blackberries, we had peach trees. I don't remember but one apple tree. And had a truck patch. This is a garden, a large garden that's larger than the average gardens, which everyone then had larger gardens and larger families. And so on the 4th of July, always, they would dig potatoes. Hot, sweat beads just eating Janelle and me absolutely up, just sting us. We thought we were ruined. But anyway, the potatoes was put up for the winter in a dug hole in the ground by hand, say 4 feet wide, 2 feet deep, could be 2 to 3 feet deep, but I just remembered about 2 feet deep. There went the potatoes, the Irish potatoes, the sweet potatoes, the turnips. I don't ever remember any apples being put in there. And then that was covered with something like a board gate, but turned flat down, like the tabletop. And up on top of that then would be something that would turn water. And when they would, and then stuff was laid up on top of it. So when come time to go get potatoes for supper, lunch, whatever, then they'd come raise up one corner of that and get out what they needed for the cooking. Mama always canned, raised and canned, and we never had any beef at all, never. But we always had pork. And she would can sausage and different things and salt down the meat enough that would keep us from the time that they slaughtered. Say it had to be cold weather, it had to be freezing for the meat to be kept in the smokehouse. And so Mama would always keep back enough. I guess she was saving that she could have this in the spring of the year for the meat, the bacon, the meat grease to season the spring vegetables with. And in late years, while Mama lived and Vita Crosswhite Anderson lived, Vita would always save Mama some bacon and bring to her to have for summer. However, I remember when we moved to Lead Hill and lived, when the town divided and we went to the north town, and Mama built a new home. Daddy was gone then. And Mama built a new home, and she would buy half of a hog. I remember she was an older woman. And they would bring it, the men would bring it. It was either Valines or Parsleys would bring her a half of a hog, cut just absolutely half in two. Bring it and unload it. Put it on a Hoosier that had, that Mama had bought during Conard's lifetime, and Conard had, the rats and the mice would gnaw in to get to some food and gnawed 2 little holes at the corner of the 2 lower cabinet top doors. And so Conard put a little bolt, little lock on there so that they couldn't really open it. And I have that Hoosier today, and it had aluminum cabinet top then, and Mama butcher cutting this hog up with an axe herself. I saw it in my own eyes. I couldn't have done it.